Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is literally on everyone's mind right now, the future of work. Every time you open a news feed, you're probably bombarded with conflicting stories about artificial intelligence. It's either the end of human labor as we know it, or it's some golden age of unlimited leisure. Well, we want to get beyond that hype. Today, we're taking a strictly macroeconomic, data-driven look at what is actually projected to happen to jobs by the year 2030. We're going to look at the hard numbers to see exactly where the risks are and where some massive new opportunities are hiding.
So here is the multi-trillion-dollar question, right? On one side, you have the doomsayers selling fear, insisting that AI will wipe out our livelihoods. On the flip side, you have the utopians promising this explosion of new jobs that will just effortlessly replace the old ones. The truth, according to the data, is neither of those extremes. The reality is far more nuanced, highly specific to certain industries, and honestly, absolutely fascinating.
Okay, let's dive right into this and map out the labor market's future. We'll be hitting 1. The real AI job data, 2. Roles at highest risk, 3. Career paths for growth, 4. The blue-collar boom, 5. Surviving as a co-pilot, and 6. 2 possible future scenarios.
Starting us off with Section 1, the real AI job data.
Get ready for a surprise because these expectations from the World Economic Forum might completely subvert what you've been hearing. Yes, a massive 92 million jobs are projected to be displaced globally. Sounds terrifying, right? But wait, factor in the jobs created column, 170 million. That actually leaves us with a projected net increase of 78 million jobs worldwide. Basically, the data suggests that productivity gains from AI are generally going to stimulate broader economic hiring rather than just shrinking the total pool of available work.
That being said, the scale of this transition is still staggering. Goldman Sachs insights point to a huge number regarding global exposure to automation, roughly 300 million jobs. Now, don't panic. That doesn't mean 300 million people are getting fired. It means 300 million jobs are significantly exposed to AI, meaning the nature of those jobs is going to change dramatically.
To put that into perspective, AI has the potential to automate tasks that account for roughly 25% of all work hours in the United States. So even if your specific job title doesn't disappear, a quarter of what you do every single day is going to be fundamentally altered. That is a massive chunk of our daily routine just handed over to automation.
Which brings us to Section 2, roles at highest risk.
So, who is actually vulnerable to this 25% shift? Well, macroeconomic data from Stanford and ADP reveals a very specific trend. The jobs likely to shrink are those defined by routine information processing, administrative tasks, and certain creative industries. We're talking entry-level programming, basic writing, graphic design, and routine financial admin. Here's the kicker. Mid-career and senior professionals are largely keeping their jobs and just using AI to boost their own productivity. But companies have significantly pulled back on hiring younger, entry-level workers for those AI-exposed roles. The traditional bottom rung of the corporate ladder is essentially being automated away.
But it's certainly not all doom and gloom. Section 3, career paths for growth. And this brilliantly illustrates the flip side of the coin. We are seeing a direct macro shift away from routine info processing and toward 3 distinct growth areas. First up, infrastructure and power build-outs. Think data center engineers, hardware specialists, and electrical grid technicians. AI requires massive amounts of power and physical housing, right? Second, legal and high-level strategy. These are roles requiring deep, critical thinking, relationship management, and complex compliance. And third, non-exposed, in-person physical labor sectors like leisure, hospitality, and healthcare. These in-person jobs remain heavily insulated from AI replacement.
That leads us nicely into Section 4, the blue-collar boom. Here is an amazing twist in the data. Blue-collar workers are actually positioned to gain tremendously from the AI boom. The retraining landscape right now is incredible. Factories are ditching those old dusty classroom manuals for augmented and mixed reality. Mechanics are literally learning complex AI-driven machinery protocols through AR glasses right on the shop floor. Furthermore, logistics giants are facing massive shortages of skilled technical labor. Just look at the Amazon model. They're building direct, fully funded bridges for their staff to move from the warehouse floor straight into the robotics engineering room.
The core evolution here is the transition from manual operators to highly skilled system overseers.
As factories adopt more smart automation, the demand for traditional assembly line workers doing repetitive manual tasks is shrinking. But simultaneously, the demand for industrial technicians who can oversee, maintain, and repair these automated systems is absolutely skyrocketing. It's driving a massive macro trend straight towards trade schools and technical upskilling.
So what about the white-collar workers? Section 5. Surviving as a co-pilot.
Let's move to and see how this builds a totally new career progression if you want to stay in your current field. It starts with basic prompting, sure, but it definitely doesn't end there. Workers are being trained to use AI as an autonomous digital intern to orchestrate complex multi-step workflows. But the absolute most vital skill is becoming the human in the loop. Employees must be trained to identify AI hallucinations, flawed business logic, and factual errors. You have to know exactly when to override the algorithm and apply the soft skills AI completely lacks, like cross-functional collaboration and strategic judgment. If you can manage the AI and catch its mistakes, your value actually increases.
Building up to our climax now. Section 6. 2 possible future scenarios. Now, what's really interesting about the macroeconomic timelines policymakers are watching is the probability split. The consensus economic base case, sitting at a 75% probability, is a gradual adoption baseline. But there is a 25% risk scenario of a front-loaded frictions crisis. Let's break down exactly what each of these timelines means for us.
In the 75% gradual adoption scenario, AI adoption is steady, but naturally slowed down by corporate bureaucracy, data privacy concerns, the crazy high cost of computing power, and compliance with new laws like the EU AI Act. Job markets fluctuate, but without a macro crisis. If firms adopt AI gradually over a decade, Goldman Sachs expects just a tiny 0.6 percentage point increase in unemployment. However, that 25% front-loaded crisis is what keeps policymakers awake at night. If AI leaps forward exponentially and businesses aggressively roll out agentic AI within a compressed 2 to 3 year window just to maximize profits, we get a massive shock. This could cause a sudden spike in unemployment by 2 to 4 percentage points, localized heavily in white-collar sectors. Why? Because of a skills mismatch. Think about it. A displaced corporate analyst cannot instantly become an HVAC technician or a data center engineer overnight.
Ultimately, whether we experience the slow, gradual rollout or the sudden shock, the landscape of work is fundamentally shifting. The data from the World Economic Forum, Goldman Sachs, and Stanford all point to a future that absolutely requires adaptation. The opportunities for growth in infrastructure, complex strategy, and technical trades are massive, for sure, but they require us to understand the data and pivot accordingly. So the final question you really need to ask yourself is, are you preparing for the job you have today or the job that will actually exist in 2030?